The first thing Kalen thought when the starboard thruster exploded was that it sounded remarkably like his ex-girlfriend slamming a door during their last argument. Not exactly a comforting thought, especially while spiraling toward the surface of a fractured moon at a velocity best described as molecular redistribution. He'd been chased before by debt collectors, rogue mechs, a very offended clone of a religious figure, but this was new. The AI drones were relentless, teeth like plasma cutters and personalities like tax auditors. He screamed, not out of fear, but frustration. "You had one job, Rusty, one job!" Rusty, the ship's semi-sentient nav system, replied with all the resignation of a middle-aged bartender. "I warned you that jerry-rigging the stabilizer with a spoon was ill-advised. I needed the spoon for coffee. Priorities." The ship broke atmosphere with a lurch, skimming across the broken surface like a skipping stone. Rocks rose to meet him with surprising eagerness, and then everything went white. He came to with the taste of blood and battery acid in his mouth, dangling upside down from the pilot's seat. Helmet cracked, boots missing. One boot. The other had been somehow wedged into the dashboard's cooling vent, whistling with every breeze. "Status report," he croaked. Rusty wheezed and then died. "Great. Terrific. Love it." He unbuckled himself, fell onto the ceiling, and groaned. The ship was wrecked beyond repair, twisted metal and sizzling conduits. Outside the porthole, the moon looked worse. Massive tectonic scars split the surface like veins of ancient punishment, and floating shards of its own crust hovered in lazy orbit, occasionally smacking together like indecisive lovers. As he tried to crawl toward the emergency hatch, he saw her, a silhouette, tall, slender, and holding what appeared to be a disruptor rifle made from the nightmares of paranoid engineers. She wore an expression halfway between amusement and suspicion, and her ears, long, elegantly tapered like blade tips, twitching as if scanning the ambient frequencies of the universe. "Hello," Kalen managed. "Are you a hallucination, a scavenger, or one of those very sexy death cultists I've heard about?" She cocked her head. "That depends. Are you edible? Only if you like your meat sarcastic and undercooked." She stepped closer, boots making no sound, eyes glowing faintly violet. Her suit was high-tech, adaptive, and shimmered in the fractured light like it couldn't decide whether to be cloth or armor. She looked human. Almost. Then she zapped him with something that made his bones play jazz. He woke up inside a containment field, floating 3 inches off the ground, arms bound behind him by bands of humming gravity. The alien woman sat nearby on a hover crate, peeling a fruit that looked like it hated being peeled. "Morning, sunshine," she said. "I had a dream I was abducted by a space elf with unresolved trust issues. Funny thing, you look exactly like her." She grinned, sharp and lazy. "Space elf? That's a new one. I'll add it to the list. You got a name?" "Kalen. Pilot. Crash expert. Full-time idiot." "Virelia," she said, tossing him the fruit peel. It bounced off the field and hit her in the face instead. She didn't blink. "I collect things. Strange things. You, my noisy little meteor, are strange." "I try. It's the cologne. Desperation for men." Virelia circled the field, studying him like he was a puzzle with half the pieces replaced by candy wrappers. "You're not registered in any known system. No ID tags, no biometrics. Not even a basic data signature." "Because I value privacy. Also, I may have bartered my profile for a pizza last year." She tapped a control and a beam scanned him, pausing briefly over his chest. She frowned. "Your physiology's weird. You're real organic, like unsettlingly so." "Thank you, I exfoliate." Virelia leaned in, nose inches from the field. "Most of the galaxy's meatbags have synthetic genomes, nanite infusions, spliced blood. You're baseline. Old school, like someone pulled you out of a museum and gave you a gun." Kalen swallowed. "Sounds retro cool. Also sounds like maybe you shouldn't tell people that." "Oh, I'm definitely telling someone." She turned away, but something flickered in her posture. Hesitation, curiosity, he couldn't tell. "You're worth something. Not sure what, but something. Story of my life. Usually ends with someone trying to sell me or marry me for tax benefits." She picked up a device shaped like a seashell and began tuning it. It screamed in protest. "I'm not gonna hurt you," she said, half to herself. "Probably. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me this week. You talk too much. You listen too much." Varelia smirked. "I like games, and you might be my new favorite toy." Kalen raised a brow. "Warning, I squeak when squeezed." They stared at each other for a moment longer, some kind of unspoken language trying to bridge the gulf between threat and farce. Then she deactivated the containment field with a flick, and he collapsed to the floor like a drunk accordion. "Thanks," he muttered, rubbing his wrists. "I usually have dinner before getting zapped, kidnapped, and mildly flirted with." She offered him a hand. "I'm only playing with you," she said. He took it, still wary, still curious. "Well, just don't break me. I'm limited edition." She didn't answer, but her eyes, those odd violet eyes, watched him just a second too long. Kalen's first impression of the perigee wasp was that it smelled faintly of burnt ozone and overconfidence. It was sleeker than anything he'd flown, with panels that shifted like breathing skin and corridors that curved for no reason other than style. Varelia strutted through the ship with a confidence that suggested she either owned it or had stolen it recently enough to still feel excited about it. He limped behind her, still sore from the crash and the recent gravity bond experience. "So what's the plan? Sell me to the highest bidder, or do I get to spin a prize wheel first?" Varelia didn't turn around. "I haven't decided yet. Depends on how annoying you get. I peak somewhere between charming and terminally talkative." "I noticed." She led him to a small room filled with weapons arranged in what could only be described as violent feng shui. There were blasters, neural rippers, sonic hammers, and something that looked suspiciously like a modified leaf blower, but hummed with antimatter. She tossed him a silver band. "Put that on. It's a tracker. I like knowing where my investments go." He stared at it. "Do I get a matching collar? Maybe something with rhinestones?" She rolled her eyes. "It'll explode if you take it off." "Romantic." The ship hummed to life beneath his feet, shifting into a jump prep vibration he recognized from his days smuggling illegal marmalade through unstable wormholes. He balanced himself against the wall and tried not to look impressed. "So where are we going, Captain Longears?" She tapped a control panel. "Trading station on Gleason 9. A bloom broker owes me a favor. You might cover the debt, or replace his pet." Kalen frowned. "What exactly is a bloom broker?" "Black market gene trader. Specializes in rare biology. Think of it like space eBay for morally ambiguous scientists." "Oh, good. I've always wanted to be auctioned off to a mad bioalchemist. It's on my bucket list right after survive a crash with dignity." "Dignity's overrated." The ship jumped. Reality folded in on itself, screamed briefly, and then resumed normal service. Kalen spent the next few hours exploring his prison, which turned out to include a surprisingly plush bunk, a shower that occasionally sprayed jelly, and a food dispenser that insulted him in 6 languages before offering a single gray cube that tasted like regret. He found Varelia in the cockpit, feet up, sipping something dark and steaming. "Tell me something," he said, leaning in the doorway. "What's a bounty hunter like you doing flying solo? You seem like the type who'd have a crew. A snarky pilot, a brooding mechanic, a medic with a dark past." She stared out the window. "Tried that once, didn't stick." He waited, but she didn't elaborate. "So what happened? You get tired of sharing armrests or accidentally vaporize someone mid-snore?" "They died, mostly." "Ah, so team building's not your thing." She didn't smile. "People are inconvenient. Things are simpler when they shut up and behave. And yet here I am, a walking inconvenience." "That's half your charm." Kalen sat across from her. "You ever think maybe it's not about convenience? Maybe it's about connection. Having someone who laughs at your bad jokes, steals your fries, knows how you take your coffee." "I don't drink coffee." "Monster." She cracked a grin, just barely. The silence stretched. The stars moved slowly. Then she pulled out a scanning device, sleek with a crystalline lens, and pointed it at him. Kalen flinched. "At least buy me dinner first." "It's a relic analyzer. I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with you. Physically or emotionally? Because that's a long list, either way." She ignored him, watching as the device beeped uncertainly, then displayed something in a language Kalen didn't recognize. but definitely didn't trust. Her eyes narrowed. That can't be right. What? Your genome. It's baseline. I prefer the term vintage. No, you don't get it. You're clean, untouched, unmodified. There are maybe a dozen beings like that left in the entire known systems. You're human. Guilty as charged. She stood up fast. No, you don't get it. Real humans aren't supposed to exist anymore. The wars, the splicing programs, the digital ascensions, they wiped out the originals. Kaylin raised an eyebrow. Maybe I'm just a very convincing impersonator. She didn't laugh. This changes everything. Well, I hate change. Can we just pretend I'm mildly interesting instead of galactically important? She stared at him, hard, long enough that he started counting his own freckles just to break the tension. I can't sell you, she said finally. Not like this. Oh no, what a terrible inconvenience. Please don't not sell me. I mean it. She rubbed her temples. There are people who would kill for this. Not just biodealers, governments, cults, corporations. You'd disappear into a lab and never come out. That's not a future I was planning to include in my 5-year goals. She looked at him and something shifted in her gaze. Not quite softness, not quite sympathy, but something. I need to think. Take your time. I'll be here, glowing with purity and inconvenient truths. She left the cockpit. Kaylin stared after her, then at the stars beyond the viewport. Well, he muttered, that escalated faster than a zero-G bar fight. Behind him, the food dispenser beeped. Error. You are too rare to consume. Please exit the galley. Kaylin found Varelia in the cargo bay, sitting cross-legged on a crate labeled Caution. Do not jostle unless you want to evaporate your spleen, staring at a portable hologram projector that looped data in symbols Kaylin couldn't read. She didn't look up when he entered. I've decided not to hide in the air vents, he said, mostly because they're full of spider bots. One of them tried to negotiate rent. Varelia kept staring at the projector. Did you know there used to be whole colonies built just to breed humans? Not preserve them, breed them. For experimentation, for nostalgia, for display. Well, now I'm retro and collectible. Should I start charging for autographs? She shut off the projector and finally looked at him. This isn't a joke. Most of the things in my life aren't. That's why I make them funny. Varelia jumped off the crate and paced. I thought you were just another scavenger with a death wish and a bad haircut. But you're a human, a real one. Not coded, not grown, not part of the archive replications. I told you, I exfoliate. She paused mid-stride, pointing a finger at him. You don't understand what this means. You're a political weapon, a religious icon, a trillion-credit DNA sequence. There are systems that would rewrite their laws just to claim you. Well, lucky for me, I'm more trouble than I'm worth. Unfortunately, that might be the only thing keeping you alive. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You ever think maybe I don't want to be anything but Kaylin? Not a symbol, not a relic, just a guy with unfortunate fashion sense and a mild addiction to caffeinated jelly beans. Varelia looked at him for a long time. If I were smart, I'd dump you at the next station and let someone else deal with the fallout. If you were smart, you'd have left me in the wreckage. She didn't answer. Later, Kaylin found himself in the engine room, helping the ship's maintenance drone, affectionately named Spud, replace a burnt-out quantum coil with a toaster. Not a special kind of toaster, just a toaster. Spud, I don't think this is regulation. The drone buzzed and displayed a crude stick figure, giving a thumbs up. Right, sure. Let's patch a singularity drive with breakfast appliances. What could possibly go wrong? The ship jolted, not from the toaster, surprisingly, but from a sudden shift in trajectory. Kaylin stumbled to the nearest common. Varelia, what's going on? Did Spud's culinary engineering break causality again? Her voice crackled over the speaker. Change of plans. We're diverting. To where? An unregistered system. Not on any charts. Off the grid. Sounds cozy. Also sounds like the exact place someone would go to dispose of inconvenient humans without paperwork. You wanted to avoid being a lab rat, didn't you? He couldn't argue with that logic. Well, he could, but it wouldn't help. Hours passed in slow pulses of starshine and half-hearted system checks. Kalen spent them scavenging through Varelia's old logs. Not snooping, just morally curious. Her earlier missions were clinical, efficient, violent, retrievals, elimination contracts, high-risk, high-reward work. But buried in the middle was something different. A crew, smiling faces, a long-eared mechanic with blue oil on his cheek, a medic with cybernetic wings, a younger Virelia, laughing like she hadn't yet decided to build her personality from sarcasm and steel. Then the entry stopped. The last log was blank, just a date, nothing else. When he found her in the galley later, she didn't ask what he'd seen. She just handed him a cup of something steaming and possibly sentient. "They didn't make it," she said quietly. "Ambush near Theta Verge. Wrong place, wrong timing. I was the one who made the call." He sipped the drink. It tasted like cinnamon and existential dread. "And now you're flying solo, picking up strays like me?" "I don't pick up strays. I pick up profit." "Then why haven't you sold me?" She stared at the floor. "Because I don't know what I am if I do." He considered that. "You could be someone who makes a different choice." She scoffed. "You think that's how it works? You blink and suddenly you're redeemed? Space doesn't work that way." But people do." A red light pulsed on the panel behind them. Incoming signal. Distorted. Varelia moved fast. "Someone's pinging us from the unregistered system." "Friendly?" "No such thing." She slid into the cockpit, Kalen right behind her. On the display, a ship flickered in and out of stealth. Elegant, predatory, with markings in a dialect Varelia clearly recognized. She swore, loudly, in at least 3 tongues. "Let me guess," Kalen said. "An old friend?" "Mercenaries. Hired muscle for the Chromatech Syndicate. If they're here, someone already knows about you." "I was really hoping to fly under the radar. Literally, like as a floorboard." The ship's weapons spun to life. Virelia fired preemptively. "Hold on to something," she snapped. "Is panic acceptable?" The Wasp veered into evasive maneuvers, flipping end over end in ways that made Kalen's organs reconsider their current locations. Blasts rocked the hull, but the shields held, barely. In the middle of the chaos, Kalen reached for a control panel. "Tell me this button doesn't do anything important." "That's the toilet flush, unless you rewire it." "I rewire everything." He slammed it. A pulse of sonic interference exploded from the rear of the ship, loud enough to rupture eardrums, delicate enough to scramble targeting systems. The enemy ship blinked, veered off course, and clipped a gravity well disguised as an asteroid. It spiraled. It didn't recover. Kalen leaned back, sweating. "Did I just win a fight with a toilet button?" Virelia exhaled, half impressed. "You might be the dumbest lucky charm in the galaxy. High praise, I'll embroider it on a pillow." She didn't laugh, but she looked at him longer than usual. "You're more trouble than I planned for." "You say that like it's a complaint." "I say it like I'm not sure what to do with you anymore." He smiled. "Start by not selling me. Maybe work your way up to friendship." Varelia didn't respond, but she didn't look away either. They spent the next day orbiting a moon that didn't exist on any chart, which Kalen decided was either a good sign or an excellent prelude to being hunted for sport. The moon itself looked like a crumpled ball of tinfoil with a magnetic field strong enough to make his hair stand up in the shower. Not that he was complaining. The ship's sonic rinse setting had stopped sounding like a vengeful opera singer. Small victories. Virelia spent most of her time in the cockpit, scanning transmissions and rerouting systems like she was preparing for something neither of them would enjoy. Kalen kept busy reprogramming Spud to play poker and repainting warning signs in the cargo bay with helpful phrases like, "Definitely not a trap," and "Here be laser sharks." Spud found it hilarious. "What are we doing here again?" he asked as he balanced a ration cube on his nose. "Waiting for a contact," she said without looking up from her screen. "A smuggler named Brent. If anyone can make you disappear, it's him." Kalen snorted. "Disappearing's easy. I used to win at hide and seek for 7 years straight, until my cousin moved and they realized I wasn't still hiding." She glanced at him. "Charming. Brent's bringing a cloaking shroud. Old military tech. Should keep your DNA signature off the galaxy's most wanted list." Will it also hide my dazzling personality? Number. We're going to have to surgically remove that. The contact ship arrived 2 hours late and looked like it had been assembled entirely from stolen vending machines. It docked with a hiss, a grind, and something that sounded like a fart from a dying space walrus. Kalen gave it a respectful nod. I like a ship with character. Brent was a quadruped with a mechanical jaw, a fondness for chewing stem leaves, and a voice that sounded like someone gargling gravel. He barely looked at Kalen before turning to Varelia. This the relic? Don't call him that, she said flatly. Brent shrugged. You said he was important. I didn't expect legs. I walk, Kalen said. It's my thing, along with surviving explosions and making people question their life choices. Brent ignored him. I brought what you asked. Cloaking shroud, black market ID weave, new retinal signature. All untraceable. Almost. Almost? Varelia asked. Brent looked suddenly very interested in the ceiling. There's been chatter. A ping from someone big. Syndicate level. They're offering more than I make in a decade for a trace on a pure genome. It's only a matter of time. Varelia's voice went cold. You didn't give them anything? Brent held up his claws. You think I'm stupid? Kalen raised an eyebrow. Do we want that answered out loud? The exchange finished without incident, which Kalen found suspicious. Nothing ever went that smoothly unless the universe was winding up for something terrible. Brent left, and the Wasp detached, sliding quietly into the shadow side of the moon. Varelia activated the shroud. The ship flickered, its energy signature folding in on itself until they were, theoretically, invisible. Theoretically. So, Kalen said, lying upside down across the cockpit bench. What's our plan now? Live quietly on a backwater planet? Open a diner? You can be the grumpy cook. I'll wait tables and tell customers their auras are misaligned. She gave him a look. That's not a plan. That's survival with breakfast options. She stared at the stars. I've been thinking. That sounds dangerous. If you really want to disappear, I know a place. Beyond the reach. No colonies, no satellites. Just dead space and old wrecks. Sounds romantic. It's not. He sat up. You'd come with me? She hesitated. I don't leave jobs unfinished. I'm not a job. I didn't say you were. He studied her. You know, you keep acting like you're this cold, unfeeling mercenary, but the more I get to know you, the more I think you're just scared. Of what? Of being responsible for someone who doesn't blow up when they get too close. The silence stretched. Then she got up and left the cockpit. Well, Kalen muttered, that went great. Next time I'll try poetry. That night, or what passed for night in deep space, he found her in the observation dome, staring at a binary star system that pulsed like a heartbeat. Can't sleep? He asked. Sleep is inefficient. So is stress. And yet here we are. She didn't move. I used to come here with my old crew. We'd argue about which stars were most likely to implode. Bet credits on it. Sounds like a healthy workplace dynamic. She smiled faintly. They kept me grounded. Now I just float. He sat beside her. You could try anchoring again. She looked at him. You really believe people like me get to do that? I think the universe is big enough to surprise even you. She didn't answer. The next morning an alert blared. Unidentified ship incoming. Cloaked. Varelia jumped into action, activating emergency thrusters, boosting the shields. Kalen looked at the readout. That's not Brent. No, she said grimly. That's Syndicate tech. Advanced. They're tracking us through the cloak. How? She didn't answer, too focused on dodging the barrage of fire coming from the enemy vessel. Kalen strapped in, white-knuckled. If we die, I just want you to know I left a half-eaten ration bar under your bed. Sorry. Noted. The Wasp dipped, spun, and streaked across the moon's surface, kicking up plumes of dust. A narrow canyon opened ahead, barely wide enough for the ship. You're not seriously... Kalen began. I am. She dove. The canyon walls screamed past, inches from the wings. The Syndicate ship followed, firing plasma rounds that sizzled the edges of their shields. Kalen muttered every curse he knew, then invented 3 new ones. Can we outrun them? But I can trick them. She angled upward sharply, flipped, and fired a decoy drone embedded with her ship's signature. The Syndicate vessel took the bait. It chased the decoy into a gravity sinkhole. Gone. Kalen sagged in relief. Next time, can we just play cards? Varelia's hands trembled on the controls. They're not going to stop. They know what you are. They won't stop. He reached over and rested a hand on hers. Then we don't stop either. The Wasp drifted quietly along the rim of a derelict orbital ring, its hull scorched, its systems patched together with hope and chewing gum. Kalen was in the lounge teaching Spud to juggle ration bars with a makeshift tractor beam and deeply regretting suggesting it juggle anything explosive. I swear, he muttered, ducking a spinning tin of something labeled meat, probably. One of these days you're going to toss a grenade by accident and we'll both wake up as interstellar compost. Spud cheerily beeped and drew a stick figure of Kalen on fire. Virelia entered, hair tied back, eyes distant. We've got one shot left. At Spud. Good, I'll aim. She didn't smile. We intercepted a secure Syndicate transmission. They're sending a collection unit to Calyx Prime. That's where they store biological anomalies. Kalen raised a brow. Like rare orchids, or like me? You are a very noisy orchid. But yes, like you. He stood. So what? We blow the place up? We break in, replace your biometric data with synthetic junk, and make it look like you died last cycle. You want to fake my death? Could we do it with dramatic music? Maybe a slow-motion explosion? No one's going to mourn you in slow-mo, Kalen. He grinned. Can I still have a eulogy? Spud's been working on haikus. Calyx Prime hung in space like a beacon in a warning. Chrome towers stabbed into clouds of nanite mist. Orbiting drones scanned continuously, and surface guns the size of freight shuttles rotated with grim purpose. Kalen stared at the display. You sure we can sneak in? Not really, but I'm great at improv. I've seen your cooking. That's not reassuring. They docked under the guise of a decontamination sweep. Virelia wore a stolen uniform with enough fake credentials to crash a small government. Kalen wore a helmet that made him sound like he was gargling screws. Spud was disguised as a sanitation unit, which he took disturbingly seriously. They made it as far as the data vaults before things went sideways. A retinal scan refused Kalen's override code and triggered a silent alarm. Virelia cursed in 3 dialects. Plan B? He asked. There was no plan B. Well, I feel very betrayed. She fired a stunner at the nearest drone and yanked Kalen down a side corridor. New plan. You find the server core. I'll hold them off. He blinked. You're going to solo the Syndicate? They don't know the building like I do. I worked a contract here once. Briefly. You blew it up, didn't you? Only the East Wing. He didn't argue. He ran. The core chamber pulsed with blue light and enough to static to curl his eyebrows. Kalen found the biometric data stream, plugged in the override key from Brent's gear, and prayed the system didn't recognize sarcasm as a threat. It worked, almost. As the false death signature loaded, a security AI flickered to life. Unauthorized bioform detected. I'm not unauthorized, I'm just misunderstood. Preparing termination. Sequence. Kalen flailed and hit the emergency bypass. The AI blinked. Confused. Same. Approved. He collapsed against the console. If I live through this, I'm buying a farm. The explosion started before he could reach the hallway. Just a small one. Probably Virelia's idea of knocking. He sprinted toward the exit, smoke and chaos blooming behind him. She met him halfway, bruised but smirking. Your death was beautiful, very convincing. I'm told I make an excellent corpse. Back on the Wasp, they disengaged and jumped into hyperspace. The Syndicate wouldn't chase a ghost. Kalen slumped into the co-pilot seat. So, what now? Virelia didn't answer immediately. Then, you could keep flying with me. Technically, you're already dead. That means no one's expecting anything from you anymore. Except good jokes. I said no one, Kalen. He smiled. You're not going to sell me. No. Or dump me on some forgotten planet. Also no. He looked at her. Why? She leaned back. Because somewhere along the way, you stopped being cargo. There was a beat. Spud entered, holding a sign that said, Human, 1, Galaxy, 0. Kalen laughed. I think I've finally gone from rare artifact to mildly annoying friend. She glanced sideways at him. Don't push it. The stars stretched in their endless dance. Kalen reached up and traced one with his finger on the viewport glass. Hey, he said, what if we're not just running? We're not. Then what are we doing? We're flying towards something better. And for the first time in a long while, he believed her.